Welcome to Simply Bitcoin, the channel that breaks down all the daily Bitcoin news from Twitter, the Daily Fail, the meme review, software releases, and the websites by Plebes. We've got it all. Drop us a like and subscribe. All right, here we go. We're going to the numbers.
Booty dashboard.
We are currently at a block height of 666,244. The current Bitcoin price, 36,475. Chain rewrite days, 566. Total lightning capacity, 1,039.36 BTC. And the Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 5.69%.
Numbers are looking good, but unfortunately no Satoshi, the Bitcoin chicken, because he only comes out when the price of Bitcoin reaches an all-time high. That being said, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Fail. So today's Daily Fail is brought to us by, shout out to Bitcoin Meme Hub, okay, who reminded us, and this is a follow-up to previous fails. Okay, this is Francis Coppola. And okay, so this is what Bitcoin Meme Hub had to say here. Everyone, obviously jokingly, right? Everyone needs to buy a full Bitcoin. No DCA SAT stacking allowed anymore, guys. Let's never ever tell her that you don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. This is pure comedy. Puts a link to the full video, and we are going to play this little snippet of 30 seconds. Here we go.
Like to say is that by subdividing something like Bitcoin, you make it possible for more people to buy into it. So you've increased its liquidity. Yeah. So even when your price is rising, in a way, you're still supporting demand for it.
Look at the pizza in the corner.
Like to say.
Yeah. So somehow, for whatever reason, she just completely ignores the idea of Satoshis, okay, completely ignores the 100th decimal place, okay, the 100 millionth decimal place, completely ignores the fact that you can just buy individual Satoshis and that there's 100 million of them in one Bitcoin and that you don't have to purchase one entire Bitcoin in one shot. And somehow, I don't understand this, but the fact that there's these 100 million Satoshis makes it so that there's more Bitcoin to go around. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry.
It literally doesn't make any sense. And she's, you know what the funniest part about this, Phil, is that she's considered a thought leader in QE. That's when you know things are effed up, because she can't even do some basic decimal places in her head. You know, so it's oh man.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. I mean, are you kidding me?
It is. Look,
she writes about the economy.
How could you man, these are the people in charge of the goddamn money, man. Like, no wonder none of this makes sense. You know, she's in desperate need of the orange pill, but I think she's gonna be one of the very last people to take it, unfortunately. That being said,
gosh, yeah.
Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
All right, everybody. Our meme for today is brought to us by me. I couldn't find any other memes. I'm going to be very strict on myself because it's my own meme. First time I saw this, I laughed really hard. Phil, I don't know if you've seen it before, but let's check it out.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened. I told.
So it was great. Phil, it's my own meme, so I'm gonna be very strict to myself. I'm gonna give that a 7. What about you, Phil?
Well, look, okay. So I'm a huge fan of Family Guy, huge fan of Cleveland. I'm a huge fan of like all these kinds of cartoons. So for me, I'm gonna go with an 8.
Woo-hoo!
I'm gonna give you an 8 on that one because it made me laugh. And I thought it was very simple, right? Very simple messaging. Got the Bitcoin logo, and you got her saying the perfect things.
Right? I told you so. So I
love it.
I didn't wear this
I love it.
sweater on purpose. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News, sponsored by Crypto Cloaks.
All right, everybody, our news for today. First thing I'm going to start off with Naval. It ties up with everything else. So he says future generations will read history books about primitive societies in which the global supply of money was set at bi-weekly committee meetings from people like Francis Coppola. Like, she's a thought leader in this QE BS, and these are the people in charge of money printing, right? And let's explore that topic a little bit deeper. Document Bitcoin, which, by the way, I definitely suggest you following his account, said Bitcoin went from 4,000 to 42,000. And this was right on the cusp when the Fed, and we covered this first right here on Simply Bitcoin, right when this announcement dropped. Give us a like, subscribe. Anyways, so Federal Reserve claims it has infinite amount of cash. And this was right before Bitcoin went parabolic. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think not. Let me dig deeper. The new administration just unveiled a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. The new administration tends to leans left. Whether you agree with ideology or not, we don't care. We're simply Bitcoin. We don't lean left. We don't lean right. We lean Bitcoin, right? So regardless, right? The left tends to, they tend to support more and give more to the people. Whether you agree with that or not, the money has to come from somewhere, right? So check this out. Biden just announced a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. And this is how much money printing we have already done in 2020. This chart goes all the way back to 1975. That's 4 years after Nixon took us off the gold standard, aka the Nixon shock. And even then, the money printing was gradual. Check what happened in 2020. We have covered this before, right? But look what the mainstream media is focusing on. The boogeyman, the scapegoat, right? It's almost as if they want to get your attention off the money printing and they want to get your attention on the boogeyman, the thing that they cannot control. Bitcoin, the thing that truly actually puts truth to inflation, right? They could manipulate the gold markets. You cannot manipulate Bitcoin because you could withdraw it off custodians, off centralized exchanges, right? So the headline's pretty self-explanatory. Alt-right groups and personalities involved in last week's Capitol riot received over 500,000 in Bitcoin. Ooh. Now, the New York Times, the paper of record. I'm not a big fan of them lately, and especially in the last decade, but tens of billions of worth of Bitcoin have been locked by people who forgot their key, right? No mention of this. This does not show up on the headlines. Why is that? Right? And I just want to remind everybody, this is someone who's from Venezuela, my home country as well. And he retweeted something by Dan Held. He says, Venezuela's currency is so worthless that children are now playing with trash piles of it. That is an amazing video to kind of represent where I believe and Bitcoiners believe the dollar is going. Why? Because these people just print unlimited amounts, right? And I just want to end kind of covering the news with saying, just reading El Sultan Bitcoin's tweet. It says, you Americans don't see it as possible. I'm sad to tell you this will happen to the dollar as well. Fiat is slowly dying globally. He's absolutely right. Historically, every fiat that has ever existed has always gone to zero. So the dollar is no different. And you see this from the mainstream media. They're using propaganda to get your eyes from the danger that Bitcoin truly uncovers versus let's focus on the boogeyman. Let's focus on something that could potentially unravel this whole mess that they are part of, right? That they got us into in the first place. So Phil, what are your thoughts on this, man, this whole BS? It infuriates me and infuriates all the Bitcoiners. The Bitcoiners know.
So a couple of things, right? This actually kind of looks, they think that it makes Bitcoin look bad. Actually, you know what? I'm going to back up even before that. Okay. The reason why we are not focusing on the money printing is because the new narrative, okay, or the more recent narrative that's heavily being pushed, especially since all this money printing began, is MMT. Okay. And it's the modern money theory, I believe it is. Okay. Anyways, there is no deficit. There is no inflation. Okay, guys. So that is that's really what's important. And I think that that underlying narrative is kind of driving this type of news away from what's really happening, right? Before this $1.9 trillion, I think we were at like what, 3 trillion or 4 trillion? I don't even know what it was that we printed since the beginning of this year, but it's disgusting. Okay. So these pieces, right? Like that article about, about the 500K in Bitcoin being transferred, it actually shows Bitcoin's censorship resistant properties. So they did that's kind of like a little bit of an ad campaign right there. And at the end of the day, it's the US dollar that gets used in the majority of nefarious activity all around the world. So, this whole garbage that they try to stick down our throat and tell us that it's good for us, at some point, we're all going to start to realize in larger numbers that this is in fact garbage. So
absolutely. And when you say that, like everyone's going to realize absolute garbage. That's exactly when, that video of that little kid playing in trash, that's going to happen. It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable. They can't, in my opinion, Phil, I think that central banks and banking in general, with the negative interest rates, with the money printing gone crazy, I think they're in the last death throes. I don't think it's sustainable for the next decade. I think they've squeezed everything they can. I don't think they could keep going.
We are releasing literature right now that says that deficits aren't real and that inflation isn't real. Okay, so then why are any of us paying taxes? Why do any of us do any of this? At some point, like somebody's like, it's just not a consistent freaking fairy tale, Like you got to pick something and go with it that's solid, And Bitcoin is that thing. Everything else is just these moving goalposts. It's ridiculous. Like we have books right now telling us that none of this is. Oh no, it's all good.
And they have blue check marks. They have blue check marks. It's verified from Twitter. But the Bitcoiners that are shouting out the truth, they're considered toxic and whatever.
You can't trust an anon. You can't trust an anon account, man. Can't trust them.
The world is upside down, but the good news is Bitcoin wins. The incentive game for Bitcoin is so strong. It plays on that human emotion of greed, and it's just Bitcoin wins. Bitcoin's going to win this battle, but it's going to get bloody. That I guarantee you.
I'm right, it is.
Phil, that being said, there was a software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. All right. So it looks like today we've got fully noted version 0.2.9 that was released, and the details to that are down below in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. If you guys liked the episode, smash that like button. If you guys love the episode, subscribe. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode of Simply Bitcoin.